Hey everybody, going live now to have a conversation with Susan McPherson and Farrah Bostic. I'm just going to invite you, so just bear with me. We're talking about the lost art of connection. Hey Susan,
Hello.
I'm just getting Farrah here. So
I'm
just
getting the
bear with
wheel
me.
go round. Hi. Oh,
Here
wow,
we
so
go. Oh
shiny.
good, Farrah's here. Okay, so let me do this a different way. So welcome everybody to our conversation about the lost art of connecting with author Susan McPherson. I'm just going to invite Farrah Bostic. Here we go. And Farrah should be joining us momentarily. Oh, your setup looks great, Susan.
Except with the TV behind me, but as
Yay!
Farrah has been to my apartment. It was difficult to find where to
Yeah.
be because I'm all windows and you
Oh,
can't
that's
be,
nice.
or I have a couch and you can't put a book behind, or anyhow, I'm sure your audience could care about the logistics of my living room, so we'll leave it at
No,
that.
it looks wonderful. I'm just thrilled that in our attempt to connect digitally, this three-way on IG Live is actually working. So I'm feeling really happy about that. Okay, so thanks everyone who's joining our conversation. I'm Natalie Nixon. I am the president of Figure Eight Thinking. I'm a creativity strategist and the author of The Creativity Leap. And I'm really thrilled to be in conversation today with Susan McPherson, the author of a brand new book called The Lost Art of Connecting, or The Lost Art of Connection. It's The Lost Art of Connecting. Yes,
You know
Susan?
what? Connecting, but I'll take it.
Okay, The Lost Art of Connecting. And also joining us is Farrah Bostic, the president of the Difference Engine. And I just thought it would be a grand way for us to kind of do this conversation about connection with Farrah and Susan, because it's through Farrah that I met Susan. Why don't we start it off just by Farrah and Susan, would you just share how you guys connected and met?
Wow.
I don't think we remember anymore.
I know, I know. I fangirled Farrah. I mean, she's one of the smartest women I've ever met in my life.
True
And
that.
really, yeah, and really a jack of all trades, lawyer, researcher, quantitative and qualitative, an analyst, dog lover, dog mom. And wait, I'm going to tell you her absolute super skill, super secret sauce. This woman knows how to install a range, a
What?
dishwasher, a washing machine, drywall. Okay, so if you ever need a contractor, there you go.
Farrah, I think you shared some photos of that process on Instagram a little bit, didn't you?
Oh yes, yes, it's well documented on Instagram. I talked to a friend of mine from college the other night, and he was like, "Well, the thing I know for sure is what you're working on at the house." So
Yes, yes.
And
So
I
you
would
guys
be,
don't even remember how you got connected and met.
we
no,
just knew
no.
a bunch of people in common, and then it must have been at an event or a party or something. I think the first
Yeah.
time we really hung out one on one though was at the dog park.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
Ah,
Our dogs are very we we keep saying they're going to get married one day. We just COVID has caused a little bit of a distance in their love life, so
that's
we'll
true.
see.
so I honestly, Farrah, maybe you remember. I don't remember how you and I met, but I do. Maybe at a conference. I'm
I
not
do.
sure. How did we
I
meet?
do. We met at, I cannot remember the name of the conference, but my husband and I were on a panel, and you came up and asked me about my shoes, which were United Nude
Yes.
shoes, and you also are a lover of United Nude shoes, which is
Oh my gosh,
yes,
that's right. And that
yes.
totally makes sense. Okay, so connections happening through animal loving pets, through love of fashion, great shoes by United Nude in particular. I met Susan very recently through Farrah. So Susan, like put a bow on it. Like how does that relate to a lot of the principles and things you talk about in your book, The Lost Art of Connecting?
Well, I think what was really magical is through Farah introducing Natalie, you and me, we made magic, right? I spent maybe 30 minutes talking to Natalie, and in my usual self, asked her a zillion questions. And they were the type of questions that weren't, like, what did she have for lunch that day? Or, where did she go to college? but they were really meaningful questions to find out kind of what she really wanted to be doing, professionally and probably a little bit of personally, without being, hopefully, I mean, you tell me, hopefully I wasn't, digging too deep and going directions I shouldn't, but I learned a lot about Natalie's many secret sauces. And in my book, I call them your chief differentiating factors. And believe me, she has numerous of them. But, listening carefully, which is what I did. I was out walking with my Phoebe,
Yes.
so I couldn't take my usual notes, which I do, but luckily I still have a fairly decent memory. And about 4 days later, the executive director of an organization which I have been serving on the board for 6 years, which is the U.S. arm of the UN High Commission for Refugees, sent me an email and said, help, Susan, everyone, I really need to have somebody who's unique to come in and run an offsite for us. And it's a paying opportunity, which of course I cleared first. And of course I was like, oh my God, I was like,
Yeah.
I have the person. And not only did I, immediately reach out to Natalie and ask her if she'd be interested. So then I went back to the executive director and I said, I think I have the absolute perfect person. She was interested. I connected to them and voila.
Yes.
Now, I will say that doesn't happen always that quickly and, like boom, boom, boom. But I could tell you thousands of those instances. I think what the specialness of all this is, amongst the fact that you were able to get this, I think very, very wonderful, meaningful role, is that it came from a trusted source.
Yes.
Farrah said to me, you have to meet Natalie for all sorts of reasons. But I didn't even question Farrah. The next day I reached out to you, and I know people are like, wait, I'm too busy, I can't do this. But sometimes it can just be a 10-minute conversation. And if you ask the right questions, you can get to the right place so that you can make meaningful things happen. And they don't always happen the next day, and they don't always happen the next month. They might happen the next year. But I think that is the beautiful thing sometimes, if we really ask the right questions and probably just as importantly, listen.
So I am taking notes on a little red Post-it as we talk. And, what I hear you saying is how important trust is in meaningful connection, how important active listening and asking the right questions. But the other thing that I know so well about Farrah, which is also a theme here, is generosity, is professional generosity. Professional generosity is a soundbite, a term that I adorn on people who sometimes I've never even met them in person yet, and they barely knew me from a can of paint, but through a trusted interconnection, they said, sure, let's talk. I'd love to help you. Let's work on XYZ. And those are people who I just have so much gratitude for their professional generosity. And Farrah and I have collaborated on a number of things. She's been professionally generous when I was a professor. She was a guest speaker with our graduate students. Susan, you just explained some professional generosity that you gifted me with. And I want to ask Farrah, because you definitely, Farrah, when I think of you, you're incredibly generous. Where do you get the release to just give and not be transactional about it?
So some of it is just if I don't know, there's a kind of a spark that happens and you kind of hit it off with somebody, and then I think sometimes I've made this joke, it doesn't go over well, but I sort of mate for life with a lot of people. And so it's just like, once there's that connection, then I don't know, I just, that's how I
Would you
operate.
say that again? I mate for life with a lot. Say that again?
Yeah, I mate for life with a lot of people. Like once we've connected, it's
Yeah.
I think I've been lucky that other people have been generous enough with me to know that they're dealing with an ADHD person who might disappear for months or a year or longer.
And she does. And
then reemerge.
Yes.
But I always reemerge. I always come back. And anytime you need me, like the hibernation can be over. The retreat can end. And that's just, I suppose some of it is I hope that I'll have earned some of that in return when it's needed, but it's not always needed. And so I get a lot actually out of listening to you and listening to Susan and listening to other people, and then sort of seeing what it's kind of fun to brainstorm, I think, really. It's like what ideas come to mind from the questions you're asking and things you're thinking about, and it just keeps me kind of connected to the world, I suppose. I guess it's why I interview people for a living too. So
well, and monogamy is overrated anyways, right? So
Yeah.
don't tell my husband.
We'll keep Stu out of this.
So Susan, why'd you write this book?
Oh boy, I knew you were going to get to that. Actually, the thesis for the book was 4 years ago, long before the pandemic. The book was not about connecting during the pandemic, post-pandemic. It was really because, well, several things. Over the years, people always said to me, "How do you do it? You connect so many people. Would love to know your secret." Okay, so that was one. Two, I had really gotten tired of people, including myself, measuring our currency value, our connection value by the number of followers, by the number of clicks, by the number of likes, right? And we had become slaves to our devices. A friend of mine had, a few years ago, said to me when she dropped her kids off at the school bus, she would watch them, and they were 10 and 12, and they would get up on the school bus, and as soon as they sat down, instead of talking to their neighbors that they were sitting next to, they'd be immediately looking at their phones. I mean, and I just thought to myself, wow, this is not we're not heading in a good trajectory. But as we all know, writing or getting to the point of writing a book is a very long process. And so I didn't even get there until January of 2020. And I started to write in February. And of course, the world shut down in March. And all we had was clicks and likes and followers, right? To basically, and obviously technology. But over this past year, while interviewing a number of leaders for my book that also are deeply connected individuals, at the same notion, running my own company and using the Zooms and the Microsoft Teams, we became much better at being more meaningful in our technology than we used to be. So I think in some ways, now that the book is written, but obviously the elephant in the room that is throughout the entire book, of course, is how we stayed connected during this pandemic. But part of one of the themes is this notion of first doing a reflection of yourself, of the community you want to build. And we could not be at a better place in time. I mean, we're at a horrible place in time. Let me get that straight. But in terms of being on this cusp of being able to come back out into some sense of normalcy, this is that time when no time like the present, to start thinking about what is the community you want to build, what do you have to offer to actually help others, and also what are you seeking in terms of the help for yourself 4 years from now, 4 months from now, or even 4 weeks from now, and how are you going to go about doing that? And I mean, that is like the first section of the book. So I think, if anything now, a month ago, I burst into tears because it felt so bittersweet to be writing a book about connection at the loneliest time in my life. I mean, I've been totally alone for 12 months. But I will say that in some ways, we have never valued deep, meaningful relationships than we have today.
Say more. That's so true. That's so true. It's because it's such an obvious negative space. It's like we're leaning into it even more. Yeah,
exactly. So that is the reason for writing. And now we have a nice Brooklyn siren going right by for those of you who miss New York City.
That's okay. I love that. There's 3 key words in the title of the book: the lost art of connection. I'm sorry, I keep of connecting.
That's okay.
And so why is it lost?
Yeah.
And why do you call it an art?
Well, I mean, there is a methodology in the book, and I just mentioned the gather. And so I guess you could go so far as say it's, there is an art to connecting. And I fervently believe that you must lead with, how can I be of help to be a meaningful connector? You cannot do it from a place of what can I get? Okay. And don't get me wrong. There are times in my life where I'm like, I need to have, right? I mean, I'm human, just like everyone else. But what I have found is leading with the notion of how can I be of service? What can I do to help you? Doesn't necessarily mean I have to help you right that second, but over the span of time. And I don't want to overstate things, but Farrah has seen me live that for years.
Yeah.
But I also want to make sure that folks paying, tuning in or whatever we call it on Insta Live, I am not suggesting that we put others before us. And women we know are inherently bad sometimes at putting ourselves last, right? And I am certainly not suggesting that, but I am make the case in the book that when we lead with how we can help, others will help us. And the ask portion of the book, Gather Ask, is learning the art of asking the right questions so you can find out what is important to others, just like I did with you that day, Natalie. So that then I have the toolkit to be able to be helpful. If I hadn't asked you those questions, when Anne-Marie reached out to me and asked me that, I wouldn't have thought of you, right? I mean, I don't mean to be, I mean, maybe, I shouldn't say that. You had left a wonderful impression on me, but you were so we were so specific in our discussion. And then the do, which I think is fundamentally, I mean, each phase is vitally important, but I do believe the do is professionally the thing everybody wants to be good at, right? You want to be known as somebody who gets shit done. You want to be known as somebody who's dependable, reliable, trustworthy. And you only become that when you actually do things. And you don't have to, again, do them all the time. You don't have to do them the next day. You can do them the next year, the next 10 years, but be someone who's going to be someone who, when somebody needs something, that you either step up and you help, or you know what, find somebody who can help.
So it sounds like gather, ask, do is part of the methodology that you're advocating. And what I think is super interesting is that level of inquiry that you are advising that we engage in and just building curiosity. And as we're getting to know one another, there's also a lot of inquiry and curiosity for ourselves. It sounds like that first exercise, right? It's all about asking ourselves a lot of questions. Let me pause and say to anyone who's joined, I need to put on my reader so I can actually see.
I've had mine on the whole time.
Yeah, if you have a question or a point that you'd like to add, please do so in the comments, and I'll do my best to capture it. Farrah, is there any particular question or comment or observation you'd like to add at this point?
Well, I think the thing I was thinking about is the interesting sort of synergies between what Susan's talking about with connection and what you write about with creativity, because you're using the word inquiry, and there's a lot of this kind of concept of generosity that I think is present in the way you approach innovation and creativity at work as well. And also that both of these things are not necessarily inherent character traits. They are competencies and skills that you can build. And I think it's just a really interesting kind of intersection of ideas between the two of you that I'm vibing on right now.
That's true. And I think about, in the way I think about creativity, toggling between wonder and rigor to solve problems, I think about 3 capabilities to use to exercise creativity. And inquiry is one, being improvisational is another, and intuiting is a third. And I agree with you. I see a lot of copaesthetic intersection between them. Farrah, I wrong or right, I often think about you as kind of my techie friend. So I wonder, in this time of COVID, what are you observing as kind of the good news about technology, which sometimes just feels a bit overwhelming, where it's like saturating our lives? But where are you seeing some added value and benefits of technology in helping us to connect during this time of quarantine and extreme isolation?
I think one of the things I've been thinking about a lot the last couple of days, I suppose, just some projects I've been working on, is I have a sense that people are actually being a little bit more deliberate about the choices they're making about what technology to use to communicate. And the thing that got me thinking about it was I realized that, I've got Zoom calls, I do Slack calls with my project manager, there's a text thread, there's a WhatsApp thread, there's conversations happening on Twitter and an Instagram DMs, and sometimes they're all happening. I could be talking to someone, in 2 different places at the same time, and then in the end decide to just I think Danita was on at one point earlier here, and she knows I will be
Yes.
DMing her in Instagram, and then I will switch over to texting her, and then at some point I'll just call her on the phone.
Hey,
Although
Danita.
I'm still so weird about the phone. Like, we're so used to this digital communication that I will text people first to ask them if it's okay to call them. So that is a weird
I
thing
don't do that.
I know you don't.
And I call
And I
Farrah.
respect that.
It may be because I'm older than both of you, that I still, even though the device does many other things, it still makes phone calls.
Well, I'm finding that a good old-fashioned phone call is such a nice breather and a relief these days.
Yeah.
I love speaking phone. By the way, someone from where we are for good has just sung your praises, Susan. And they made a really nice comment that Susan doesn't just teach this philosophy, she lives this. Our team has been so touched by her thoughtful way that she's connected and lifted our mission. So would you say more, Susan, about how your practice of the art of connecting, how you bring it into the business realm and help organizations with things like their mission?
Well, first of all, I mean, you asked me kind of a little bit at the beginning, a little bit of the impetus for the book. I founded my company at age 48. And it was terrifying. I mean, in a sense, it was just a placeholder until I found the next thing. I did not know how to run a business. And over the last 8 years, 98% of our business has been inbound. And it dawned on me that came from, 25 years of actually building meaningful relationships. And we were talking a little bit earlier about the serendipity of relationships. And one of the interesting research pointers that I learned, and Farrah, you probably already know this, that people we never even meet affect our lives. And so everyone you meet, of course, and this is something so vitally important, is a conduit to something else, something you will learn not only about that person, but something about yourself. But you will also be connected to that person's connections, right? So when I look at the business that has come in over the years, it is from all those meetings I took.
Yes.
And obviously our clients, I mean, I run a social impact communications firm. So we help corporations, NGOs, social enterprises, basically create their messaging to reach the audiences they want to reach. But guess what? Oftentimes that's finding the people to reach. So again, this notion of why bother? I mean, I'm hopefully sharing the proof in the pudding. Why? But you know what? I have to just shout out another cool thing about Farrah. You mentioned about how technologically adept she is.
Yes.
The last time I had a gathering at my apartment, almost a year, well, no, it was last February, right before the year shut down. I had just come back from Antarctica, and I had a video that was like, I wanted to share with everybody.
Wait, you just dropped that in. I just got back from Antarctica. That's amazing.
Whatever. Yes, highly recommended. In fact, I can't wait to get back, which is another mind-boggling thing. Farrah was the only person who could connect my computer to this TV behind me, which doesn't work, by the way. I don't even know how to turn it on. And we were all able to watch the penguins on the video. And so anyhow, that was her technology. I'm sorry, I'm getting us off topic, but.
No.
It's true. I'll be tech support for anyone who needs it. It's okay.
Yes. It's a magical gift.
I love that you framed human connection and the people we meet and just make time to talk to. And you talked about how these people are conduits. I love how you framed it that way. And my husband John and I often talk about the difference between reciprocity and being transactional. And reciprocity, the way I think about it, is much more about flow. It's on a time continuum that is not tit for tat. It's something that can reappear and reemerge in our lives decades later, right? Years later, and it's not quid pro quo. It's totally because we see the benefit of pouring into, to use your expression of the conduit, and to be open to receiving. And I think that's also another thing, Susan and Farrah, is that not everyone is always open to receive, and that's okay. But that's kind of the flow that has to be present for the connection to happen, right?
Absolutely. Well, I also, again, this is not something you do once, right? This is not like a linear type thing. This is something you do throughout your life. And there are times, obviously, where you can't be helpful, right? You may have lost your job, or you have a sick relative, or you may have just had a baby. There's all sorts of things that happen in our lives, and that's okay. And I think what you just mentioned, Natalie, is, it can be 6 months later, it can be 6 years later. But once you build that meaningful connection, it could be a connection for life.
Yeah. Yeah. We are rounding out with like 5 minutes left. What is something that you want to make sure you leave us with, Susan, to make sure we pre-order the book? I pre-ordered the book.
Well, it's on sale. You can order it now. Everywhere but, you can order the Kindle on Amazon now, and the hardcover will be available March 30th.
Did you read the Audible version of your book?
I am. I'm starting. It's going to be out in June. So yeah,
nice.
I will be the one reading it, which I don't know how that's going to come out, but we'll see.
Awesome. Definitely read your own words.
Thank you. Two fun facts. One is that studies have shown that if you are more deeply connected, you will live longer, and you will also succeed in the work professionally better. So, those are two good reasons, right? Why not? So I think if you were to ask me two special sauces from my book, those would be two things.
Awesome. Anyone who's joined us, a question that you'd like to ask?
Hi, Jane. I haven't seen. See, Jane's a dear old friend.
Hi, Jane. Thank you for joining.
My father-in-law is on as well.
Oh,
yay! Nice.
Love that.
Maybe we could round it out with each of us sharing. I didn't know if I should ask an interesting, cool, quirky / meaningful connection you've had during COVID, or maybe you could just pull out one from your heart through your life of a connection that is still alive. That's pretty meaningful.
Well, I can share one. So we moved out to our house in Long Island in East Hampton in September, after realizing that lockdown wasn't going to be over anytime soon. So we gave up our place in Brooklyn and moved out here. And as I was sort of getting to know kind of, what is the area actually like when I'm here full time, I started learning about the local community and the local indigenous tribe that is from here, the Shinnecock tribe. Started following some of their artists and leaders on Instagram, actually, and befriended one of their best young artists, Jeremy Dennis, who is often very online on the Instas. And so we've hung out a couple of times in person. I've given him some supplies for an artist in residency that he's turning his sort of family home on the reservation into. And it's just been a nice connection. He's my first real East Hampton friend, and it was a nice meet to make.
Shout out to one of those artists. Do you remember their name or their tag on Instagram?
He is his name is Jeremy Dennis.
Jeremy Dennis.
And I'm not 100% sure what his Instagram handle is, to be honest.
Okay, well, I'm gonna
Jeremy. He's Jeremy Native on Instagram. That is
Jeremy Native. I'm gonna check out Jeremy Native on Instagram. Awesome. Susan?
Well, clearly meeting you has been remarkable, and I loved being able to put you in touch with an organization that is near and dear to my heart, and certainly very, very important. And I have to say, I'm not a specific person, but last probably April, I started a Friday night gathering of about 20 women that I love and adore, and every Friday night, we would all get together. Some couldn't make it all the time, and some would be in their pajamas, and some would be 3 sheets to the wind. They were so drunk. Others would be, really but you just showed up, right? And we would talk about everything from, sex clubs to writing to books to, you name it. But it was a real release every Friday. And it was magical, and Farrah was part of that community. And I think for me, there were a lot of people that didn't know each other prior to that, and they got to know each other. So to me, that was a magical gift to watch that happen.
That's awesome. I would just say for me, it's anyone who knows me knows I cannot be stopped when it comes to the dance floor. I can never do all-nighters, but I can dance all night long. And to have a company like Dance Fit X is where they are on Instagram. They have been leading online dance classes since last March, and they've been a lifesaver. So just, movement, even though it's through this virtual space, but the release of movement and getting my inner Beyonce on and all that is just pure joy
I love that.
and health giving and energizing. So Dance Fit X and all that artists are doing in this really difficult, challenging time, keep doing it. Well, I really, really, really love you, Farrah, for, those years ago, not thinking I was some crazy person for commenting on your United Nude shoes. And love you for connecting me to Susan. Susan, thank you for your generosity already in my life. And I wish you, Susan, so much success and fortitude and during the launch and release of your book, The Lost Art of Connecting, in this year. Thanks everybody for joining us.
Yes, and I'm excited for the three of us to get together in real life.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm down for that. Can't wait. And
We'll
hopefully
make
in
it
the
happen.
Hamptons. We're out on Long Island.
Yes.
Oh yes,
Yeah,
yes.
this way.
No better.
I give you that. I'm there, and Phoebe will be so happy to see Haskell.
Awesome.
He will be thrilled. All right.
Thanks everybody.
Thank you.
Bye. Thank
Bye.
you. Bye.
Good night.